redefine normality. Let's redefine normal distribution. Let's redefine outliers. Let's redefine standard deviation. Let's redefine error. Let's redefine or let's decouple the idea that normality comes superiority, or that normality is something that you should pursue.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Idioms of Normality on Future Framed TV, the collective podcast series of Traces.Dreams. I'm here today with Dr. Humberto Bettini from Brazil. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Paul. Thank you for your attention.
And before we get started, tell us a bit about yourself. Tell us about the perspectives and experiences you bring to the topic today.
Well, I'm Brazilian, so Brazil is a very diverse country. So I believe that I'm going to highlight some topics on this aspect, on diversity, on variety. And I am dealing with students. I'm a professor at the university. So actually we need to be sometimes formal, sometimes we need to be informal, sometimes we need to be more colloquial. So I believe that this topic of normality and all the subjects that come together, actually they all suit the person that I am. So this is my feeling.
Excellent. And you're a professor at the university. What are you a professor in?
My field of knowledge is economics. So I deal with economics and accountability, but my public is formed by students of engineering. So actually I am I'm in the middle of two fields. So I come from economics, but I'm not dealing with pure economics. I'm dealing more with applied economics.
Very interesting. So let's just jump right in. What is normal?
Wow. What's normal? I believe, Paul, that normal is variety. First of all, I just give a hint that I was going to say this topic some seconds ago. So first of all, I believe that normal is variety, and normal is non-conformity. I would bring these two points. I believe that these are the two main elements of normality. And actually, I'm very much aware that this is not the most intuitive answer that you can have. I guess it's not that much intuitive.
Well, you're the first person to tell me that normality is about non-conformity. That's really interesting. Tell me more about that.
My feeling, Paul, actually, I am not exactly from the field of knowledge of linguistics or anthropology. You are from this area. But there is something that really annoys me. It's a topic that really annoys me, that somehow in the history of humanity, normality and normativeness, they were coupled. So my feeling is that actually these are two separate terms. So normality comes in one side and normativeness comes in other side. So this is why I was referring to non-conformity, because actually I feel that these are two concepts that they are put together, but they should not be seen as synonyms. This is my feeling.
I would agree with you about that. In fact, the more I think about it, the more I see where you're heading with this, in the sense that, well, statistically speaking, if we ask what normal is, then not being the norm is actually not subscribing to the norm, not being dead center in the middle of not being a representative of the group is actually the normal thing to be. So non-conformity is actually normal. Not doing the same as everyone else is actually much more common than doing the same as other people. And normativity, though, and what you're talking about here is that normality and normativity somehow became blended and people started confusing both of them. Tell me more about that.
Actually, the topic that you brought right now is something that really caught my attention in the beginning. Maybe my first thoughts about this very wide topic of normality, maybe it came in the university when I was studying statistics. Maybe this was the source. Because if you look to statistics, and then economics is one field that drinks a lot from statistics. So we have lots of reference from statistics. When you see normality in statistics, and then you can also make this transference to normality in economics as well, actually you are dealing with a probabilistic distribution that you are trying to fit for describing a phenomenon, or one phenomenon, or several phenomena, in a kind of theoretical ground. So actually, it's something very much strong. First of all, if you are going to believe that individuals, they are described by a normal function, first of all. And second, if you are going to believe that individuals, they should, for some reason, for some normativeness, they should be put the closest that they could be to the average, then this is something too much stronger. So actually, my feeling is that life is something that should be seen as more capable of accepting variety and accepting non-normativeness. So maybe my main influence in this field came from statistics as a student. Maybe this was the source for this kind of understanding that I have right now.
I think statistics is such an important area of study because I think, first and foremost, I think people need to study statistics so they're not fooled by it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in the media, we see statistics thrown at us all the time. Graphs which are always just actually not perfectly represented because that gets across a certain kind of persuasive message. And if we allow ourselves to get fooled by statistics, then we just become these conformist, mindless creatures. And I think one of the biggest things, and I really totally agree with you here, I think one of the biggest things we're fooled by is the average, and that we should be average. You know, average weight, average height, average skin color, average eye ability, average smell. You know, we should be able to be the average. And the thing is, that's nonsensical. It's absolutely nonsensical.
And more than this, bro, actually, when you see statistics and then when you see economics as well, actually, both of these fields, sometimes they portray something in a theoretical ground, but then somehow you try to impose this as something that should apply to the subject. And actually, the causal relation is the inverse. So actually, you are trying to describe in some theoretical grounds some subject that you are seeing. So my feeling is that this concept of normality, something that my feeling, my personal feeling, is that this concept of normality, the way it's dealt, the way it's proposed, the way it's presented, my feeling is that it's something more bothersome than something that can really bring some kind of relief to the life of the human beings. Because actually it comes with this kind of concept. Okay, to be normal, something good. To be normal is superior. To be normal is natural. To be normal is the expected. And my feeling, again, because of statistics, is that normality is something softer than this. Okay, it's just one concept. You can have more concepts, or actually you should couple more concepts. You should bring more concepts together, and you should decouple some concepts because you have more terms, you have more phenomena to be dealt, or more concepts to be presented for describing a situation, to describe in your life, to describe in science, to describe your own life or whatever. But sometimes we make some simplification. And this simplification, usually when we simplify normality, my feeling is that it brings some pain to the individuals. Because again, normality, comes coupled with this idea of superiority. And these are two different concepts. Why are they together? Okay, my feeling is that this is a social construction for sure. This is something that was constructed. Okay, there are political aspects, there are classes, there are religious aspects, and things like this. But I believe that this kind of initiative that we are bringing right now, so even this kind of channel and the interviews that you conduct, they should come for opening the mind. And my feeling is that the concept of normality should be decoupled from other concepts that usually we put together.
So the concept of normality should be decoupled from normativity?
Yes.
What else should it be decoupled from?
Again, from superiority.
Yeah.
Because, okay, to be normal is to be superior, so something very
to see
bad.
Normal as perfect is something that we should just not confuse those things for. To see normal as ideal are things we should not confuse them with.
My feeling was that maybe we should be sincere. Okay, what does normality mean? In the purest sense. Okay, normality, and according to my own background, I would go to statistics. Okay, I'm an economist, but I would go to the source of statistics. And okay, normality is a fitness, or how to fit a certain distribution. It's not the unique, rather the contrary. We have many probabilistic distributions that are presented to us that we can pick for studies or for understanding life, first of all. And okay, normality has some kind of use. And also, just like some medicine, it also has some kind of prescription. We should give some prescription. Okay, so when you use the concept of normal, you should be aware that you should be paying attention to the limitations. So be attention, be conscious of this. So quality is something that, for me, it comes from statistical distribution. One of many statistical distributions that they are available for us. It has some very nice power, so we can describe phenomena and things that nature fits in many occasions to this idea of normal distribution. But again, it's not the sole distribution that we have. And again, it does not bring this idea of superiority. I think this is something that we should put aside.
When I look at the history of the statistics of normality, it started off with a Frenchman, or a Belgian Frenchman, who adopted a calculation from astronomy and put it into human demography. And it began as a figure. It began as the average. And then later on, it drifted into what you were talking about, the normal distribution, which was, that bell curve. And there's a few comments that I have here. And one is that even when we had the normal distribution, we still put the average as a line in the middle of it. Yeah. And people don't realize it's so easy to take that snapshot, put it on a page and show it to people and say, this is normal distribution. This is the average. This is the median. This is the mode. And it seems convincing because it's got the power of numbers behind it. It's got the appearance of being scientific. But that calculation from the very outset was flawed. It was a calculation for a single moving object that drifted into mathematics or human population statistics, and it was used to calculate an imaginary figure from a population of discrete individuals, each with their own individual trajectory. And yet, this concept has been so popularized to the point that we are blending it with our ideas of normativity. We are blending it with our ideas of what it means to be the ideal, to be perfect, to be superior. And there's a sampling problem as well, because as soon as you try and calculate an average or the normal, you can only ever do that for a select sample size. Mm-hmm. And you can't take the normal from one sample and apply it to other populations and expect that normal to carry over.
And besides this, I would give some highlight for if you allow me. I would
Of course.
also highlight to the point of the outliers. Most of the time, when we highlight the average, when we highlight the highest highest portion of the bell distribution, we just put aside. Okay, there are those points of the sample that they are sigma distant. So 1 sigma, 2 sigma, 3 sigma. Okay, so they are distant from the average. But actually, sometimes they are very much powerful.
Oh, yeah.
When we look at the average, we are somehow invited to disconsider them. And if we look just to the average, and if we somehow restrict our attention to the average, and we make ourselves blind to what's distant from that average, maybe we cannot be ready for dealing with things that they were totally normal. We can use the word. They were totally expected. They were totally natural. And yet they were not in our radar because we chose not to look at them. Because you just gave highlights to something that is very powerful, the image. When we think about normality, we think about average, and we think about the most common aspect. But again, the most common aspect is not the unique aspect. It's not the sole aspect. It's not the sole value. It's not the sole color of eye. It's not the sole race or the sole language or whatever that we have. And if we close the eyes to the wideness of the distribution, actually we are making ourselves unprepared for dealing with things that are perfectly normal. So then we became kind of hostages. So we believe that normality is something that's also predictable. And my feeling is that actually normality is to believe that there is some probability that is distributed for individuals or for the occurrence of the phenomena that you are dealing with. But actually, you should be aware that you are going to be dealing with things that they were not in your radar, and sometimes we choose not to put things in our radar. So this image of the normal distribution for representing what is normal, and also for making us believe that to be normal is to be in the conformity, to be normal is to be in the superiority, and things like this. Actually, it's very much misleading. So my feeling is that this concept, again, I'm going to repeat myself because you gave a very nice explanation for this. I believe that this concept of normality is something that most of the times brings harm to us, brings harm.
Absolutely.
And us, and maybe as a society as well.
Absolutely. I still remember I studied statistics for biomedical science and statistics for psychology. And I still remember my teachers telling me to exclude those outliers that you're talking about. Like, figure out what the outliers are, cut them off from your calculations. You don't want them muddying the data.
Yeah.
And then when I went on to study anthropology and neuroscience, the outliers were really interesting because they told you things about the system that were really novel, and you could gain insights into the system by studying the outliers. I mean, look at the work of Oliver Sacks. It's so enlightening because he studied outliers, people who were different from the rest. Anthropologists do it all the time. They study the outliers. And I think you're absolutely right about normal doing damage when we subscribe to it as an ideology. And I see people subscribing to normal as an ideology all the time. It's funny because it brands itself as being superior, the perfect, the ideal. Be normal. It's good for you. You'll be accepted by your peers. Conform to the norms of society, and you'll be okay. You'll be the best you can be. And then when you become normal, it trivializes you. It belittles you. It says, oh, you're just normal, you're boring. And then you have to look for a new normal. And so normal is constantly shifting. And you will never find fulfillment in seeking normality.
Yeah. Actually, from listening to you, I was remembering sometimes we call outliers errors.
Yeah. Is that in economics, is it?
Yes. And we have the standard deviation, or we have the error. And okay, this is not something appropriate. Again, Paul, my feeling is that maybe you have a role for this. You yourself, and you with your channel. Your role would be to make some cleaning process. Okay, let's redefine normality. Let's redefine normal distribution. Let's redefine outliers. Let's redefine standard deviation. Let's redefine error. Let's redefine, or let's decouple the idea that normality comes superiority, or that normality is something that you should pursue. Why should you pursue normality? So why you're not allowed to be in the standard deviation? Actually, the normal curve is made from all these points. So why should you be in the middle?
And it's just a snapshot in time. You know, your point on that bell curve might change tomorrow or the day after. So if that was a dynamic moving image, no one would be fixed in one place on that bell curve all the time. And you're completely correct. I think we need to decouple these concepts. And I'm not convinced, though, that we need to redefine the concepts, because if we can just keep them as they are, when we use those concepts, we can go, we can stop ourselves and say, hang on, no, I've used that word normal. It's tripping me up because I'm actually making a factual or epistemological error by using that here. I need to turn to better concepts. Even the concept of standard deviation was invented by a eugenicist called Carl Pearson. And the word standard deviation comes from the battle standhard, the flag bearer in battles who would hold the flag up. And as long as he held the flag up, his side were still in the battle. And so to let the flag go was an act of betrayal to your patrimony, and you would lose the battle. So to deviate from the standard was literally a betrayal of your patrimony. And this concept of deviating from the standard, deviating from normal, had this negative connotation to it from the start. I think we need an entirely new vocabulary that is much more accepting of diversity, accepting of variation. Let me ask you, Humberto, what questions do you think we should ask about normality?
Maybe I would shift the question. Instead of asking what are the questions that we should ask about normality, I would privilege what are the publics that we should be asking about normality.
Tell me more about that. What does that mean?
My feeling is that actually, if you are going to believe, or if you believe, I do believe, if we share this belief, or if the viewers they share this belief, that normality comes with variety again, and that normality comes with the idea that you can be someone not conforming to the norm, or to the average, or things like this. Actually, we should have as many answers as possible to this kind of questions. My feeling is that we are very much biased sometimes for looking for the answers from the public that we know what they're going to be answering. So if we look for the scientists, or if we look for maybe the mainstream economists, if we're going to ask them what's normal, so they're going to be answering more or less what I was just answering to you now. But if you put more diverse people, then you are going to see exactly the kind of distribution that you have for the definition of this concept.
Yeah.
And my thing is that we have this bias that we are always looking for the answers in the same points. But in the same time, I also feel that most of the people take it from all the publics. They are going to be associating normality with this kind of superiority and this kind of normativity. So my feeling about what are the questions to ask, okay, what would you like to decouple from the concept of normality? So what bothers you about this concept of normality, and what do you think this concept should not bring together, should not bring coupled with? My feeling is that this should be a nice question. Okay, if you are going to clean, if you have the ability, if you have the chance to, okay, to a certain extent, of course, to redefine some concepts or to clean concepts that they were brought together. How would you make this kind of cleaning process? I feel this would be a nice question. Okay, how would you clean this concept of normality?
Putting together a few of the things that you said, I also hear the idea that we need to decouple normality from our preconceptions and our biases. And often when we're using the word normal, we're actually bringing preconceptions to the table, and we're imposing our understanding of or our views of the world onto the world, as opposed to letting the world tell us just naturally what it does and how it is.
Yes, to some extent, Paul. Actually, I feel that the concept of normality, it came from nature, because we look for patterns and we try to identify patterns. We try to identify the most common and the most unique aspect, or the most defining aspect of the phenomena that they are surrounding us. So to some extent, I believe that, okay, the concept of normality, or the quest for normality, it came from nature.
I think we need to be very careful about what kinds of physical objects in the world we're thinking about when talking about normality. And I think that's another thing that we need to clean out, right? That normality works well for, say, liquids and gases and metals and inanimate objects, but animate living beings and normality should be decoupled, because living beings and normality are not very good when they're coupled together.
Not a good match. Not a good match.
But I do agree that there are parts of the natural world where using the mathematics of normality is helpful, like astronomy.
No, I would say that even for understanding, okay, maybe I'm going to be putting my foot in a field that's not my domain. But okay, maybe for describing the part of nature dealing with beings without conscience, maybe we can put some degree of normality. But for dealing with the human being, for sure, we should redefine this. For sure, the understanding of the human being, the understanding of the behaviors of the human being, the understanding of the science that deal with human beings. So sociology, political science, economics, management, and psychology, and so forth. In these fields, my feeling again is that the use that we make from the concept of normality is very much damaging. And why? Because the way that we allowed the concept of normality to be built, and somehow we allowed it to be built by coupling things that should be put apart. For me, this is the main issue. We should put apart these aspects that I just highlighted. So the idea that we do have and we should have variety, the idea that we should have non-conformity, and I also would add that the idea that we should be looking at the long tail. I think that there are some economists that they were famous. If I'm not wrong, there was one.
Nassim Taleb comes to mind. Exactly. The Black Swan. Yeah.
Exactly. So what's the power of the things that they are probable, but they are with very small probability. So they are probable, but with small probability. and how damaging they can be if we put them aside. So exactly, the black swan is
if we assume they don't exist, it can actually corrupt the entire system.
If you make your mind and if you make your sight blind to these events, that they are predicted in the normal curve, they are there, okay? Because they are the way that the curve approach the axis is in a kind of asymptotic way. So it never touches. There is something there. There's something there. There is always something there. It never touches the axis. It's just asymptotic. If you make yourself blind to this, actually you are making a kind of disservice to you yourself, and maybe to the society, and maybe to the science that you are practicing. So my feeling, to sum up, my feeling is that we should have this kind of broader view of normality. We should understand that, okay, the normal curve is just one curve, just one distribution among many others that they are available, and that they do exist, and they do appear in the society, and they do appear in nature as well. And for me, maybe this is the most important aspect, to decouple normality from concepts that they were put together. Since we are a child, we listen to our parents and to our neighbors and to friends, bringing the idea of normality with something else, or with more things that they should not be there. Actually, for me, this is the main message that we should bring. And maybe this effort for discussing and for defining or for redefining normality, for me, these aspects, they would be the most important ones.
Well, it's exciting to be on the same page as you. Dr. Humberto Bettini, thank you so much for your time today. And to our listeners and subscribers, don't forget to hit like, leave us a comment, share, and of course, if you're not already subscribing, please hit that subscribe button so that you can stay up to date with our latest episodes, so that you can meet economists like Dr. Humberto Bettini, who can tell us about decoupling normality from the perspectives of a Brazilian economist working in engineering. And thanks also to the team behind the scenes at Future Framed TV, the collective podcast series of Traces.Dreams.
Thank you very much, Paul.